Today, we're going to make lasagna. Let's talk about ingredients. 1 pound of lean ground beef, 1 pound of ground Italian sausage. I prefer a mixture of hot and mild. 1 large egg, a whole chub of mozzarella cheese that we'll slice, 6 cloves of peeled garlic, shredded Parmesan cheese, 15 ounces of ricotta cheese, shredded Italian cheese blend, 1 tablespoon of white sugar, Italian seasoning, oregano, basil, salt, and pepper, 1 large can of crushed tomatoes, 28 ounces, 1 small can of tomato sauce, 1 6-ounce can of tomato paste, 1 box of dry lasagna, not oven ready, and a half a medium yellow onion chopped. Step 1 is to brown your meat. So for 1 pan, you're going to need 1 pound of lean ground beef, a half a pound of hot Italian sausage, and a half a pound of mild. Obviously, I'm making a double batch, but I'm giving you the measurements for what you're going to need. Once the ground beef is brown, go ahead and add your onion. For 1 pan, you're going to need a half of a medium-sized onion. You're also going to add garlic. For 1 pan, you're going to use about 6 cloves of garlic. I've just run this through my garlic press. Now go ahead and mix this together. And give those onions a couple of minutes to break down before you start adding the tomato. Now, as far as the tomatoes for this, we're going to use, for 1 pan, 1 can of tomato paste, that's a 6-ounce can, 1 can of tomato sauce, a 15-ounce can, and 1 can of crushed tomatoes, and that's a large 28-ounce can. Okay, the onions have had a chance to cook down pretty well. It's been about 3 minutes, and now we're going to go ahead and start adding the tomatoes. I'm also going to lower my heat to medium low, and I'm going to start with the can of the crushed tomatoes. Next, you're going to add your tomato paste, 1 pan, 1 can. Now just stir that all together easily. Because the idea here is the tomato paste is going to really thicken this up. So you want to make sure you get that to combine as well as you can. Next, you're going to add about 2 teaspoons per pan of Italian seasoning. Next, you're going to add a tablespoon per pan of just granulated sugar. I know it sounds weird, but you need to balance the acidity with some sweetness. Now add some oregano. I like about 2 teaspoons per pan, and some basil as well. After you mix those spices in, go ahead and add your tomato sauce. Again, 1 can per pan of lasagna. At this point, you've got a pretty nice meat sauce, and we're going to lower our heat down to simmer or low, whatever your setting might be on your range. Stir that together, and we're going to add a little bit of salt, about a teaspoon per pan. And also some ground black pepper. You don't have to use fresh ground on any of this. Obviously, you can use stuff in the little containers from the grocery store. We're going to mix this in, leave our heat on low, and let this simmer for about the next 25 to 30 minutes while we boil pasta. Okay, the pasta water is warming up. I'll be putting the pasta in there in a moment. The sauce is working, and every so often I'm going to move it around so it doesn't scorch, leaving just a little bit of gap on the lid so some steam can come off and it can reduce. Now we're going to make our cheese sauce. Now I do this with my hands. If you prefer to do it with a spatula, that's fine. So this is pretty straightforward. we're going to break an egg. Again, 1 egg per pan of lasagna. So I'm using 2 eggs. And then we're going to use 15 ounces, again, per pan of ricotta cheese. So for me, that's the full 30-ounce container. Okay. To that, I'm going to add some Parmesan. You can do this to taste. I like quite a bit of Parmesan in here. So maybe 1/3 of that container. I'm also going to add this cheese blend that I told you about. Again, this is optional. This adds Asiago and Romano cheese and some smoked provolone. And then I'm going to add a little bit of parsley, about a teaspoon per pan. And a little bit of salt, pepper, and garlic. I'm using the Kinder's The Blend. Again, about a teaspoon or 2 per pan. Then all you got to do is mix this together. And just fold it and make sure your eggs break. And get a nice creamy consistency. If you feel like it's not thick enough, then add some more of the dry cheese or the shredded cheese, which I'm going to do here in a moment. And just keep working that till you get the consistency that you want, because that's going to go on the layers. Okay, to build a pan of this is pretty easy. We're going to take our baking dish here. I'm going to back up just so you can see. Baking dish, I've got my cheese mixture and then everything else, obviously. First thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of sauce on the bottom of this pan. You do not need to grease this pan. It's unnecessary. Everything's going to bake together. So we're going to take some sauce, and it doesn't need a lot. And we're just going to set that enough to coat the bottom of the pan, but not be thick, because that's going to be kind of your non-stick barrier, if you will. Okay, but make sure you coat the bottom of the pan pretty well. It doesn't need to be thick. It just needs to cover all the edges. So it should look something like that. Then we're going to start laying a layer of noodles on here, then a layer of cheese, and just keep doing that over and over and over again. I do not recommend using the so-called ready for oven lasagna, or noodles rather. Use real noodles. I mean, boil them. It's not difficult, and it will create a much better product. So once you have a layer of noodles in here, then we're going to put a layer of cheese. Just keep building it like that. So up next is a layer of your cheese sauce. I just like to lay this in and kind of press it down. It doesn't need to be thick. In fact, thin is a better option. Then we'll top that with another layer of the meat sauce. Again, just thin. So now I've got another layer of pasta that I'm going to top with another layer of cheese. I've also sprinkled just a little bit of shredded mozzarella and Parmesan on here. Don't have to do it, but I like to do it. We're going to put one more layer of pasta on here, which is what I have cooking away. We'll top that with meat, and then we'll cheese it up and get ready to set it for the oven. Hit this with a layer of meat sauce. We're going to put our final layer of pasta on here. One more layer of meat, and then we're going to cover it with the mozzarella and cover it with foil. All right, let's put our final layer of meat sauce on here and just try to combine this out to kind of cover your pan. Now, the mozzarella that I showed you earlier, I have sliced into about 1/4 inch thick pieces. And what I'm going to do is lay these on here. And then I'm going to take some shredded mozzarella, some good cheese. This is Tillamook. And just kind of fill this in. I'm going to cover this with aluminum foil. It's going to go into the oven, and it's going to bake at 375 for about 35 minutes. So I'm about 25 minutes into baking. I've just taken it out and taken the foil off so you can see what it looks like. This is all melting down really nicely. It's going to go back in the oven for about 10 minutes to kind of brown up that top a little bit and give it that finish. It's time. It's time to take it out of the oven. Now I've set a couple of cooling racks here. Same thing used to cool cookies. The only reason is when I set these down, I need them to sit and rest for about 20 to 30 minutes to really set up. And if the bottom is sitting directly on the stovetop, that heat from the oven's still coming up out of there. So I need a little bit of heat diffusion. So let's pull them out of the oven. There they are. Man, that stuff looks good. I'm going to zoom the camera in so you can see. The only thing left to do is let this sit and cool, slice it, and serve it up to your guests. And there it is. Look at that. Doesn't that look good? There's literally a cat standing on the other side of the camera wanting lasagna. So I've got people here that are ready to eat, and so am I. Till next time, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Let me know if there's something you'd like me to make. Eat fabulous.